show, another day, another sex scandal or two or three. You just have to laugh or you'd cry.
Man, politics is so full of perverts and deviants. I'm just so glad I work in comedy. Aw, damn it!
Say it ain't so. Louis C.K. accused of lewd behavior in front of several women. Before accusations were levied at Roy Moore and Louis C.K. and Harvey Weinstein, there was Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly and Bill Cosby. I know this is not true, but it seems like every man out there is a predator in a powerful position, right? I do know this. Harassment knows no party, no race, no nationality. There's bad on all sides of the spectrum, right? One more observation. The way these men chose to harass appears to be uniform. It's like they have some kind of awful playbook. Sexual intimacy expert Rob Weiss joins me now. Welcome back.
Thanks.
So I don't want to get graphic. I really don't, because it's morning. People are eating breakfast or they're eating an early lunch, so we won't get too graphic.
I consider myself warned, okay.
Okay, consider yourself warned. But the way these men chose to harass these women, it's the same. Like Louis C.K. and Harvey Weinstein, those men in particular.
This is a real power play. And it's a real balancing act for the man who's acting it out, because in his mind, he's thinking, if I can keep pushing these boundaries and she goes along with it, then I'm not a bad guy. I'm not doing anything wrong because she's sticking around for this. And you even see that in like the calls the next morning, we're still friends, right? Or that didn't, you know, they're trying to, in part, tell themselves and the other person, what I'm doing isn't really that bad, even though it is. It's like a grooming experience.
Now, I don't know how I would react in that kind of situation, but I have heard people say to me, why didn't these women just run out of the room?
It's shock. You know, this is part of grooming, is that you're telling the person is telling themselves it's this situation, and then when it starts to happen, you think, well, that couldn't be real, that couldn't be, because you couldn't imagine, most people couldn't imagine that that would actually be happening, and so by the time you're kind of getting your head wrapped around what's going on, it's already over.
Okay, I want to center on Louis C.K. because he was, I mean, I really liked him. I considered him a feminist man. He joked about, you know, how strange men, you know, the strange things men think about sex. He made fun of men for their sexual proclivities, and now here he is accused of this awful stuff.
Well, I don't think that hypocrisy is anything new in our public figures, you know, and if you look at Roy Moore, for example, you know, here's a man who's been evangelistic about the Bible and being really protecting women and focusing on their safety and their, you know, really the sanctity of the moral world that he believes in, and yet he apparently is acting out in completely opposite ways, or has been. So it's not unusual for someone to put up a front of sanctity and then, or humor, and then be hiding behind it with bad behavior.
You know, I can't help but think that some of these men who stand accused think it's okay because we have accepted this kind of behavior in our country. Going back to Bill Clinton, right? Right? A lot of people continue to love Bill Clinton even though he acted improperly with a 21-year-old woman in the White House. Donald Trump is president, right? With that whole Access Hollywood tape that came out, but no one cared and they elected him anyway.
You know, Carol, I've mentioned this before, and I wore a pink tie today for the women who are saying #MeToo and coming out, because, you know, when we had Anita Hill, and we were looking at that Supreme Court nomination in the early 90s, there wasn't a line of women supporting Anita Hill. There wasn't a whole Me Too movement. Women are out there wearing pink hats and marching in the streets. They are not happy about how women are being treated in our culture, and I think they saw a guy like Trump get away with it, and they're not going to let a whole bunch of other guys get away with it.
So why did they accept Bill Clinton?
Well, that was an affair. I mean, I have to say, that was an affair.
So
it's not an offending behavior.
Because a lot of people would not look at it much different.
No, it is a harassment. It is inappropriate.
Powerful man, right? She was an intern.
Yes, but this is not the same as doing one of those things you don't want to talk about before breakfast. You know, that's an offending behavior. Having an affair is not the same as whipping it out in front of someone in a public situation, you know, in that kind of setting. Our culture is changing. Women are becoming angrier and more concerned. And by the way, I have to tell you, I was around. That was a big deal at that time. It wasn't like we didn't pay attention to it. That's all we talked about. That's all.
You're right. But he came back, and he's a much admired man in some circles, even today, despite that.
Well, I also have a lot of experience with men like this, and not all of them, but some of them have extraordinarily great qualities. This isn't black and white. We often say we hate the behavior, but not the person.
We do. But you're right, women are coming together.
Women are
and
doing
I
it for themselves.
couldn't be happier, Robert Weiss, and I'm glad you wore your pink tie.
Thank
you
you
so much for being with me today.
Glad to.